everybody. So this is just going to be a quick video to go over something that we'll talk a lot about in CO150 that's sort of an underpinning, really important concept for this class. And that's going to be the rhetorical situation. So you might recognize this if you've already read the Introduction to College Composition in your Healthy State Reader. But the rhetorical situation is the situation surrounding a piece of writing or communication. So any piece of writing that you do or anytime you communicate, you're going to be within a unique situation. And thinking about these elements and kind of evaluating what they are help you approach each situation more effectively and adapt how you write to that situation. The good news is you already do this all the time with all kinds of writing and communication without thinking about it. But now I'm going to ask you to start thinking about it because you'll start to recognize skills and things that you do when you do this that you can apply to more unfamiliar writing situations. So we represent the rhetorical situation using this triangle surrounded in a circle, and it has a number of parts. The first part is going to be the text or the genre. So you'll see in your book it says text. We're going to use those things kind of interchangeably. So you might know genre as in, romance or sci-fi, and those things are included here too. But what I'm talking about is more broad, and it's more about what type of writing are you doing. So are you writing an academic essay? Are you writing a personal email? Are you writing an essay to help you get into college? Whatever you're writing, that's going to be the genre, and you're going to think about what are the general expectations within that genre. So what do we typically expect from an academic essay? Or what do we typically expect from an infographic? And that will kind of give you some clues about the elements that you'll include in your piece of writing. The next thing to think about is your purpose. What is your goal? This is going to include kind of broad, common writing purposes, like argument, but there's also maybe going to be a deeper goal behind it. So if you are writing to argue something, you might be making that argument so that you can affect change in some way. You may be hoping for a specific outcome. So that outcome is going to be kind of part of your purpose. So when we analyze text, we're going to think about what was the author's goal. Maybe their goal is to inform us. And that's fine, but also why? Why did they want to inform us? So we're going to kind of get into these deeper levels. The next element is going to be our audience. So this is something that will distinguish CO150 a lot from other classes you've taken possibly, because a lot of times in high school and middle school, we don't talk about who we're writing to, who's the audience. We write within a specific genre or with a specific purpose, but we don't think that much about who's going to be reading it and how we should change our writing based on them. In CO150, we're going to talk a ton about this. So as you're reading and starting to do some writing, think about who your audience is. For instance, you're going to be writing a letter of introduction and your audience is going to be me. So I'm your instructor, but I'm also an instructor you don't know well. So think about the kind of things that you might need to do based on what you know about me. The next is the author. So that's going to be you. But it's also going to be kind of what role are you playing within this writing situation. So not just you generally, but within a particular rhetorical situation, what kind of role or goals do you have? So this is obviously going to tie into purpose. And you'll notice that all of these really affect each other. The genre of writing might affect your purpose and vice versa. Your audience is definitely going to affect what kind of role you inhabit and so on and so forth. So when I say what kind of role, I mean something like this. If you're writing to inform, then maybe you're going to adopt an authorial persona that's going to be sort of an expert persona. You're going to try to sound really polished and informed and like you know what you're talking about. Whereas if the genre you're writing within is maybe a personal text, which I'm going to show you in a minute, your role as an author is going to be more informal. Maybe you're going to be sort of palling around with whoever you're writing to, and so you're going to kind of embody who you are when you're friends with that person. And we do this all the time. We kind of change roles with different people. It doesn't mean that you're faking it or you're being disingenuous. It just means you're thinking about kind of your goals and changing and shifting the way you act or the way you write based on that. And then finally is context. So you'll see our rhetorical triangle is inside this big circle because all writing and communication happens within context. This can be anything as broad as, say, the time in which you're writing. So Jane Austen is writing in a very different context than we are. And she has knowledge about things that maybe aren't that clear to us, and vice versa. It's also going to include things that are maybe more specific to this writing situation, like the relationship between the author and the audience. Or part of your context might be that you're at CSU, you might be a second semester freshman, and so that might affect kind of the context within your writing. Maybe that will affect how confident you are in your writing. Maybe that'll affect how you frame your essay. Maybe that will affect how much time you have to devote to this writing situation. Any of that can have an effect on the writing situation. So context is sort of external things that might have an impact on the writing or on the communication. Let me show you just a real quick an example. So I wrote a text to my mother yesterday asking her to send me her potato donut recipe. She makes these amazing baked potato donuts. So they're with mashed potatoes in the dough, and then she bakes them. So in reality, they're not even really donuts because they're not fried, they're baked, but they're amazing. They're really good. So I sent her this text. So the first thing is it's a personal text. That's the genre. We know some conventions of a personal text are that they're usually short, to the point. You don't put a lot of like salutations or extra information in there. Now, if I were writing an email to my mom, it would probably be a lot different. I'd probably include different stuff. It would probably be longer. So the genre is affecting how I write this. Next is my purpose, which is to request something or maybe to persuade my mom to give me something. Remember that there can be an ultimate goal behind this. So my ultimate goal is to get the recipe, and then even beyond that, to make the recipe. So I'm making a request with this goal in mind. My audience is my mom. So everything I know about my mom is going to impact the way that I write this text. For instance, I know my mom goes to bed kind of early, so I'm not going to send this text at midnight. So I think I sent it at 7 p.m. or something like that. Then there's the author, so it's me, but what kind of role am I playing? So I'm playing a daughter, but beyond that, I'm also kind of inhabiting this role of a grown daughter who now does things for herself. So I'm a competent baker. She knows that. And so I'm inhabiting that role and saying, can you give me this recipe? That's all I need. Then I can handle it from there. So this is the kind of role that I'm in when I sent this text. And then the context includes all sorts of things. It includes the fact that we live in an era with smartphones. It includes the fact that I have a close relationship with my mom and we bake together a lot and we share recipes a lot. So that's part of our personal context. I know that she keeps good recipes that are easy to follow and to read. So that affects the fact that I'm writing this text. If that wasn't the case, then I might have to ask her to write it down first, something like that. So this could be full up and go on and on and on. I mean, this includes the context of being able to take a picture with your phone and send it to me so that I can see the recipe. This includes the context of my mom being an organized person who can find her recipes quickly, on and on and on. So none of these things are actually in the text, but they kind of affect the way the text ended up coming out. So obviously, I did not think about all these things specifically when I wrote that text. But these things were all happening in my head just really quickly. And that's fine for something like a personal text that you're fully prepared to write. You know what you're doing. You have all this stuff down pat. But if we start thinking about what we're doing when we communicate like this, we can then translate those skills into things that we're not as comfortable with. So if I have to fill out a job application, that's something I'm not as comfortable with. I'm not as used to that rhetorical situation, but I know that I can still use these elements to help influence how I best write that, how I best write my, objective for my resume. And those kind of things, thinking about them will make you a better writer right off the bat. So I hope you'll start thinking about this as you do some reading and a little bit of writing this week, and we're definitely going to come back to this soon.